everybody, this is Dan Miller for Bluegrass Unlimited magazine, and this week I want to talk to you a little bit about guitar rhythm, because the podcast that we posted this week was an interview I conducted with Jimmy Martin back in 2003, and in there he demonstrated and talked about what he called his rumble rhythm. Now you can listen to Jimmy play it on the podcast, and he plays what he said Lester Flatt played, and then he played what he played, and he pointed out the difference. And so I want you to be able to see the difference, and I'll talk through kind of what he was playing, just in case you can't figure it out from the podcast when you hear Jimmy do it. I recommend that you listen to the podcast and hear Jimmy do it, but let me just show you what he was doing. But I'm going to lead up to that by first just talking about the basic boom, chick, what they call it, or the church lick, or just the basic bluegrass rhythm lick, and then we'll build up to what Jimmy was doing, okay? The first thing is you want to provide, number one, timing, and number two, some harmonic content to the rhythm. So the simplest way to do that is just to play a bass note on the 1 beat and the 3 beat, and a rhythmic strum through the chord on the 2 beat and the 4 beat, which would be simple like this. Now, you could do it like this. That gets the job done, but it's not tremendously interesting, and one of the things we also want to do is add some interest. So the first thing you could do to add interest would just be to play a bass note on the G note, which is the root of the chord, and then on the D note, which is the 5th scale degree of the chord of the key. Now, a couple things to point out about that is, number one, in the basic default boom chick strum, you want your bass notes to pop out a little bit more than your strums, and you want your strums to be quick and lighter in volume and dynamics than your bass notes. Now, that's not always going to be the case. You can vary that. You can have your strums be louder, but this is the default, where you're just going to have your bass note pop out and then a lighter strum. Okay? Now, one thing you want to do with your strum is you want to go across the middle strings, not really hit the high-end strings so much. Your mandolin and your banjo is covering that tonality, and your bass is carrying the low, so what you got that they don't have is the mid-range. So you kind of want to just go more across the mid-range, and you want to do it quick, as if hitting one string. You don't want it to be arpeggiated or raked. You don't want it to sound like, right? Again, the rake is a technique you can use, but it's not your default. It's not something that you want. That's just too much going on. And also, if you're hitting those high-end notes hard, that's just a little bit too harsh. It's a little bit too much high-end. And if you listen to the Charles Saltel video podcast that I did a few weeks ago, Charles called that Chang-a-lang-a rhythm. It's just too much high-end in there. So really, you just want to have a light, mid-rangey strum as your default. And again, you're going to vary that as the situation calls for it. But again, we're just saying this is our bass. Okay, so you'll notice that I'm just playing the 1 beat, the downbeats, 1, 2, 3, 4. The and beats, if I counted 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and I'm not playing anything on those and beats. It's just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So I'm not playing anything on the ands, okay? To add a little bit more interest here, I can play an uptick on the and of the 2 and the and of the 4. Some people refer to that as the Carter scratch. You can do, it sounds like this. So I'm doing an up strum, uptick on the ands, and of the 2 and the and of the 4. Again, you don't want to do that all the time. It just gets too busy and too high-end sounding. You can throw that in, especially when there's a space where the vocalist has taken a breath before the next line or something. Sometimes you can just mix that stuff in, but you don't want to do it all the time. Now to get to what Jimmy was doing, where he called it the rumble rhythm because he was filling every chunk hole in the gravel road, right? You're going to fully subdivide where you're playing something on all the downbeats and all the ands. So it's an 8-note rhythm that's just a constant full sound, okay? And the basic way to do that, and I'm going to break it down, Jimmy was a little looser with it than I'm going to first demonstrate here, but just to break it down, instead of going hitting the G and strumming, hitting the D and strumming, or hitting the G, strumming up, hitting the D, strumming, coming up, I'm going to play the D note followed by an upstroke, the G note followed by an upstroke on the D, then I'm going to do the strum, tick, and then I'm going to play the D followed by a G. So here's what it's going to sound like. Okay? And that's being pretty precise on those picked notes. Jimmy tended to be a little bit looser with it. You could hit other strings, but basically his hand was going. And you get that sound of like a real propelling sound, real driving sound, almost like a train locomotive going. So that's kind of the basic rumble rhythm technique that Jimmy was demonstrating on that video, on that audio podcast that was posted on the Bluegrass Unlimited podcast this week. Okay, now a couple things you can do with this that's interesting. If you're really driving and playing that first and third beat hard, that's going to be good for like a hard driving bluegrass song. But you can lay this back, or make the feel lay back a little bit if you emphasize more of the offbeats, and this kind of morphs into what they call the Ray Price shuffle. If you emphasize the more of, instead of the downbeat on the 1 and the 3, you emphasize more of the backbeat. Like if Jimmy was doing a song like You Don't Know My Mind, it has a different feel than like Hit Parade of Love. Hit Parade of Love, it's right out there, it's really driving. But You Don't Know My Mind, you could lay it back a little bit by kind of doing the same thing with your right hand, but changing your dynamics. You know, you could go, honey, you don't know my mind, I'm lonesome all the time. So I'm emphasizing more of the 2 and the 4 with the strum than I am the downbeats on the 1 and the 3, and you can get a completely different feel to by adding the different dynamics. One is real drive and the other feels a little bit more laid back. All right. Another thing you can do with this is take the basic boom chick and what we might call the boom chicka, right? Boom chicka. And we might, Oren Starr on his rhythm DVD called the Jimmy Martin thing, the boomba chicka. So we got the boom chick, we got the boom chicka, and we got the boomba chicka. The cool thing to do is mix that stuff up. And if you start mixing it up, then what you're going to have is you're going to create different kind of grooves and different kind of feels, and mix it up, mix those right hand techniques up with each other, and then change the dynamics a little bit here and there, and then all of a sudden your rhythmic palette gets a little bit bigger and wider. So you might go, things in and vary them a little bit. And then the other thing you could do is select your bass notes to be different. There's all kinds of ways you can do that, but something like a Charlie Monroe thing would be like, so instead of just always going 1, 5, 1, 5, I can go 1, 5, 6, right? 1, 5, 6, 5, 1, 5, 6, 5. So I start using different bass notes in there, and that helps me create different feels and different grooves as well. So there's lots and lots of stuff we could talk about that you can modify your rhythm with to make it sound more interesting and make it sound like it fits the song better, make it sound like it fits the emotion and feeling of the song better, make it sound like it helps tell the story of the song better. That's your goal, is to do all those things on top of providing timing, providing harmonic content, and providing a little bit of interest. And there's lots and lots of things that you could do, and we could talk about all that. There's a couple books that we have available at flatpick.com. One is called Flat Picking Essentials Volume 1, which is rhythm, bass runs, and fill licks, okay? And that gets into the basics of all this stuff. And then we have another one called The Guitar Player's Guide to Rhythm, Timing, and Groove that I put together with Brad Davis and Tim May, that gets into all this stuff in a lot more detail. But this is just the rudiments of it. I wanted to put that up here this week so that you guys could, that listen to the Jimmy Martin podcast, can sort of see what his rumble rhythm was all about, that boom-a-chicka, 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 that kind of thing. Play around with that. Try to mix it up with your boom-chicka and your boom-chick, boom-chick. Try to just mess around, see if you can create different grooves. Try to mix it all up and see how it feels to you. See where it might fit in a song when you're playing rhythm in a jam session or with your band. Try to mix those things up, see what fits there. You might say, oh, that fits good in that song. Or you might try something and say, that doesn't fit so well in that song. And that's sort of how you gain your skill as a rhythm player. You know, I think I've talked about this before on one of the videos. Well, years ago, I started a column in Flat Picking Guitar magazine called Masters of Rhythm Guitar. And I interviewed lots of people in bluegrass that I thought were phenomenal rhythm guitar players. And I'd ask them, you know, what is it that you're doing? What, you know, how do you know when to use this technique and that technique? And how do you know when to put in this bass run or that bass run? How do you know when to use this right hand pattern or that right hand pattern? How do you know when to really come in and push it hard? How do you know when to lay back? I'd ask all these questions, and a lot of times they'd say, I don't know, man, I just feel it, you know? And which is absolutely probably true, but it wasn't answering my question. It wasn't that helpful. But what I realized is you got to take each one of these techniques and practice them a lot, and then learn how to mix them together, learn how to change the dynamics, learn how to change the bass notes that you're using, and modify things, and just try them out and see where they work and where they don't work. And gradually you'll get an intuitive feel for when these techniques apply and when they work well. And then you too can say, I don't know, man, I just feel it. You know, you can have that intuitive feel for you to just know what to use when. But first you got to get the basic techniques, and these are three of them: the boom chick, the boom chicka, and the boomba chicka, boomba chicka, boomba chicka, boomba chicka. So play around with those, mix and match them, change your dynamics, do all that, and I think you'll become a better rhythm player. And later on, maybe we'll add some more stuff to the palette of your rhythm techniques. But if you want to learn more right away, I recommend checking out the Guitar Player's Guide to Rhythm, Timing, and Groove, and you can find that at flatpick.com. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks.